Hey guys, this is John here in Los Angeles with the Alpha Channel update for Saturday, October 19th, 2024. And today we are going to start with the Hakur Halderson Yggdrasil deck, the Norse pantheon of cards. And today's character is Loki, who I sort of see the Norse pantheon as parallel to the Greek and Roman pantheon. He's clearly Lucifer or Hermes. So I suppose the trickster. In the Norse religions, Loki is a disruptor. A lot like Prometheus, stealing fire from the gods and giving it to men. So I suppose in the DC pantheon, he would be the Joker. Who would he be in Marvel? Do they have a parallel? Doesn't matter. Conan 250. We can talk about Loki all night. Yeah, obviously, does Marvel have a fucking parallel? Loki. They have Loki. But he's not, somehow the Marvel Loki isn't, he doesn't fit any more than DC's Lucifer show fits Lucifer. Those aren't the characters. Those characters are sort of emasculated versions. I guess those are characters for the 2000s. Or versions for the 2000s. Marvel's version is a witch. And DC's version is like a Lothario, a lounge lizard. So, neither of those are Prometheus. Those aren't Skynet. Conan 250. They are returning home triumphant. This is a double-sized issue. It's really just got this big. It is more pages. I didn't count them. But it is more pages. It's a little long in the tooth, I guess. Roy Thomas says this one is based on one of Robert E. Howard's stories. And I suppose maybe the others were too. Gates of the Empire. So this is, I keep taking it away. But this is the cover page. All the characters are there. They're riding into town. There's a big celebration. There's some bickering back and forth. The other commanders are saying, how come they never did this when Amalric came in? Conan says, well, Amalric was a mercenary king. He's a mercenary riding into town, whereas I'm their princess's boyfriend. And she's like, well, don't get carried away with yourself. Everyone's bickering. It's funny, there's a line in here that gratitude is even less fleeting than fame, which I suppose is true. Fame is definitely more long-lasting than gratitude. But the point is that the people are not going to be grateful long. They're going to be seen as hungry soldiers with nothing to do in a very short order. Peacetime military gets no respect. And Conan, of course, is kind of just focused on Yasmila. And it comes out that her brother is the rightful ruler and he's been in prison somewhere or being held hostage by some other country. There's a lot of exposition in here. We even get a scene with the other guy who's been imprisoned and he's upset because he's royal born with this ridiculous haircut. And he's riding in a cart next to a corpse. So everyone gets a line. And then Conan, at the head of the procession, sees someone who mildly annoyed him in the past in some other city. We presume it was not in a previous book. This guy, Hob. Conan sees him in the crowd, jumps off his horse, loses his helmet, and goes chasing after this guy through the alleys. He could have just ridden him down with his horse. It doesn't look like he ran under. I mean, I guess there's a tunnel here, but Conan certainly could have taken his horse. This guy eludes Conan by ducking into an empty storeroom and immediately falling into a drunken stupor while Conan searches for him outside. So here you get the main character ditched by a fat guy. This is still Roy Thomas. And maybe this is based on a Robert E. Howard story. He returns back to the procession to explain himself to the women who are pissed off, Sonia and Yasmila. Later on, he goes back to her. Yasmila says, "Give me till after midnight." Conan does not. He goes back to her bedchamber early and finds her dressed in an unusual way. He calls her a harem dress. And, takes her to bed, as you do if you're Conan. And so here, this is kind of important, and it's good art too, despite the fact that it's all single color palette. This is important in that you notice it later. The queen, we'll see in a couple minutes. There's a reason she's dressed different. Here is the fat dude Hob at a bar talking to some nobody that he just met, and he tells him his whole story, and he's been spending these coins from a treasure site that he's looking for. And this is the location that Zula had the dream of 3 issues ago, and that Conan and his crew just defeated the wizard from thousands of years ago who rose from the dead. And now that tomb is open somewhere, and this is Hobbs' story about how he ran into Conan last time and mildly got in his way. And Conan remembered that, and it's like it's a small thing. Like it was a minor sort of thing. He didn't screw him out of a lot of money. They could have raised the stakes on this character by a lot. This was just like a minor annoyance. This guy was an obstacle to Conan at some point in the past, and Conan remembered him enough to chase him down. And apparently, I don't think he was going to kill him, but he would have maybe beat him up. If he chased him enough to, what is he going to do? Wring his neck? Slap him around? What would Conan really do? Would Conan really run through a crowd to administer a beating to someone who had mildly annoyed him at some inappropriate moment in the past? Doubtless. Doubtful. I don't think so. Maybe he would have caught up with him later, but that didn't serve the story. It just felt forced. And so then these 3 guys show up. They're like servants of the secret cult of Zud or something. So some name like that, like literally like Zud or Zuck or Zool, maybe. And they demand this fat guy come with them and show them where this tomb is, and the other guy as well, because he says he knows the way in. That's why the fat guy and the other guy were talking in the first place. They're like both criminals. And here we cut from them to Conan and the princess, and we see that Conan had been sleeping with the servant girl who was in the princess's quarters, and Conan doesn't even care. He knows it, the princess knows it, the princess's servant girl knows it, and they all pretend they don't know, which is kind of hilarious. And then we get this bit where these are the cult priests, the sort of Knights Templar guys, the Masons, with the fat guy named Hob and this other, I don't think this guy even got a name. He's only in 4 or 5 pages, and you'll see what happens to him here in a second. Skipping over the pretty X-Men ads so I can't get a copyright strike. Anyhow, I don't think that would keep me safe. So here they find, this is the temple. They're coming through. They threaten Hob. There's a lot of bickering. Nobody's happy. Nobody is happy. Everything happens at the point of a sword. No one's cooperating in anyone's best interests. Though they do eventually get to this temple. I swear to God, there was a good panel of it. Oh, there it is. They get to the temple, and when they arrive close enough to it, they kill the native who knows his way around. They're going to kill Hob, and Conan and his entire crew show up. Conan had just been with the princess. Zula and Sonia were off doing something else, but they have all gotten together and Deus Ex Machina themselves to the right place at the right time. They talk about how they followed the trail of dust and this and that. And this was all because this guy Hob offended Conan at some point in the past. Here they have a bit of a fight. As a matter of fact, what happens is Conan runs down there to fight them. Conan and Zula run down there to fight them. And the two guardsmen with Sonya turn out to be members of the cult, and they knock her unconscious, and thus they take Conan and Zula by surprise. So Conan is outwitted and taken captive. Betrayed and taken captive again. He doesn't throw his sword in this one. I don't remember what the third trope. Seducing the girls. Yeah, I did that already. So here we get the temple. Again, you can see it's open. This is the one from Zula's Dream, 3 or 4 issues ago, 247. We have that one. So just did it a few days ago. We get 4 pages of ads. That's why this book feels so thick. 4 pages of 60-pound paper, glossy, with ads. It's not done. There might be a couple more pages of newsprint comic, but mostly it's these ads that you're paying for with this double-sized issue. Although I don't know if it actually costs more. They probably just got more advertising revenue. They push their way into the temple, and they follow the bad guys down into the pit because, of course, why wouldn't you? That's where they went. For what? Well, the bad guys have the princess at this point. The princess and Sonya. And they pile them into a boat across this river. The river is acidic. Conan and those guys don't know it yet. There is a cult of Karens, the boatman, or Charon. I don't know how his name is pronounced. I've only ever read it. It's that Egyptian name. The guy who does the boat on River Styx. And they have to give him a coin and ride across, and then you see him come for another one. There's a whole fleet of them. They're like like Pakistani cab drivers at the airport. You'll see what I'm talking about. So Conan throws his cabbie a coin and then cuts his hand off before he can catch it. And they have a fight, and they throw him in the water, and that's how they discover that the water is actually acidic and it will melt your body, and you have to take the boat. Conan was going to swim after the girls, but you can't do that. And so they have this big fight. And here you see all the cab drivers on the other shore waiting. They're like tall Jawas. Conan and Zula catch up to the girls who, what's going on here? Oh, they have to fight people, and here Conan has to fight himself as a young man with his old helmet and his necklace. And that's what's weird is the cover did the helmet wrong. The necklace is a little bit wrong. But that's what's going on. Conan's fighting himself at 20, and now he's like 30. We saw, like, I don't know, maybe 15 issues ago. Not 15, but maybe 15 issues for me, but probably in the early 200s that Conan's only like 23 or 24. So he would have been 15 here. Not 20. He'd been 15 or 16. And he's like 25, 26 now probably. Sorry, it looks like my finger was covering his face. And he also sees Bellet and a couple other girls he used to know. This is like a trip through the past. And then we get an interesting fight with, oh yeah, here's Bellet over here. Yeah, those are the girls over there. And they say don't go to the shore because blah, blah, blah. There is no boatman. Conan and Zula are just doing it himself. So here's Conan fighting his younger self. And I believe this is also on this page, probably Conan fighting his older self at like 80. Yeah. He says he's 40, so that would be 80. And then here we have the Masons, the Knights Templar, walking into this mist that's going to transport them somewhere. And the girls are going to go, but then Conan arrives and says, don't go. Oh yeah, they go into the skull, and the skull eats them. And the girls are like, I'm not going in there. The princess kind of wants to, which is a little weird. And the princess has kind of been argumentative the whole time. Oh yeah, see, Sonya knocks her out. Sonya has to knock her out to get her not to go in there and drag her away. And then Conan arrives with the boat, happily ever after. There's still a couple loose ends to tie up. Mainly, they have to escape the pit. And it turns out the pit is actually got a bunch of eyes and tentacles. And so while they're climbing out, and Hob is the fat dude, so he has to be last, and the pit grabs his leg. And even though, so this is kind of interesting in that Conan jumps down to kill the monster. The princess is saying, just cut him loose. We don't need that guy. He's, dead weight. And Conan just doesn't. He'd rather kill the monster. Which is fine, I get it. And Hob hasn't really been that bad a guy. He didn't really screw Conan over, otherwise Conan probably would have killed him when fed him to the monster. And then, up on top, they start dumping down all the treasure onto the monster, like all these gold coins, which is a choice I don't quite get. But in keeping with treasure stories, the heroes never really get the treasure. This is, the temple's about to fall apart. We all know what happens, right? Like the temple always falls apart. Every time Lara Croft is about to get the treasure, it all comes crumbling down. It'd be like owning your own casino and getting robbed. It all comes tumbling down. So the heroes have to ride away without the treasure. And they have to do their best to escape it all. The princess wants to throw Zula and Sonya in prison, and etc., etc. And Conan agrees to Zula and Sonya actually say goodbye to Conan and let him ride off with the princess, and that's how the book ends. So they part ways after this disaster, where no one gets the treasure. Yeah, that's it. So, not a fantastic ending, but, I suppose justice was served. So that's really like a 4-issue arc. I'd said 247 was a pocket issue, and it kind of was, but the 4 of them really stacked up the next 2, and then this one, they all, sort of bookend each other. It wasn't the best string of Conan stories, but there was a lot. Think about all the moving parts Roy Thomas put in there. So for a 4-issue series, they had a lot of moving parts, right? They had Amalric and his army, Thessaly and his army, Princess Yasmila, the wizard, Nothrak Khan, I think is what I read in this one. And then the demons he had working for him, this guy Hob, Zula's dream, all this stuff. There was a lot of working pieces in this, and I don't think they all worked together. I think they should stick to. It's hard. It's so tempting to bring the wizards into the big medieval armies, right? Like, why not? Why not have a bunch of dinosaurs fighting, monsters, demonic monsters in the armies? And that is a very difficult thing to manage, to work all those pieces together. You had Zula solving stuff with an ancient scroll and this temple story. So it's a lot of moving parts, and it doesn't always come together in a very, it's almost like trying to make the same stew with a bunch of different ingredients. This time it's chicken, carrots, and tomatoes. Next time it's beef and barley and potatoes. You're trying to tell the same story over and over and over again. And I think the only thing that really makes this work is the month-long gap between them. When you read them back to back to back, day after day, it settles into it's a stormy sea, right? It's almost constant. You can kind of predict it. So, am I frustrated with 250 issues of Conan? No. I can see what they're up against. I'm looking at this as a writer, so I'm trying to evaluate this. And you know what? By the end of Legend of Ashley Fox, there's a bit of burnout. There absolutely is. I just listened to this one this past week. This is set over the course of a week in September 15th to September 23rd. And the violence can get one note. It's sort of like a video game that's all bullet ballet with no stealth, you know? This has plenty of stealth and stuff in it, but the relentless action can be, by the end of it, you're ready for it to be over. This one's a little different. This is sci-fi. I wanted to talk about the 5th chapter in here, which is really the 3rd chapter after 2 prologues. This is Legacy of a Mad Scientist. And in this chapter, Dr. Fox has a new project, the Epsilon Project, where he has a bunch of volunteers who are volunteered against their will because they're prisoners. And this is a death penalty alternative, is to participate in this project. And it really turns out to be a death penalty anyhow, because the project kills all the volunteers. And this chapter explains how that happens. They all get wired up to individual amplifiers, and Dr. Fox created this to communicate with his own mind, and it has a hard time writing itself to the minds of strangers. Whereas his children, Ashley and Jeff, have a much easier time using it. So that's the 3rd chapter, Project Epsilon. It's pretty good. It's very expository. There's a conversation between Dr. Fox and Dr. Lau, who's like his mentor. And Dr. Lau tells him that he feels like mankind, like all animal life, is sort of the digestive system of the planet. And that our job is to burn things and to crush them and to build things and to basically recycle the planet, you know, refining materials and then burning them, which is essentially what mankind does, you know. So, although we do, of course, grow things too, but this would apply to the forests. The forests are an exposed digestive tract of the planet. The idea, the same way trees have an exposed nervous system. You know, the leaves are sort of an exposed nervous system, sensitive to light and moisture and wind and all that sort of stuff. So yeah. And then we have the Ashley Fox Ninja Babysitter comic book. It's here in the description for you guys to check out. Today I wrote a new chapter. Yesterday I did some more coloring. I found a drawing with the current bad guy that we're using, a guy named Mazdak. I don't know if you guys are aware of Ahura Mazda, of the Mazda car corporation. They were a Nemedian, Nemedia is in Conan. They were a Middle Eastern cult, Ahura Mazda. And so Mazdak is one of their prophets, and we've brought him back from the dead he's harnessing the jinn, and he's basically going around the globe and recruiting demons and dead souls to his army, his demon army. Like, he's like a necromancer, basically. And so, yeah, the characters right now are chasing him through Mexico, where he's going through all the cartel lands and basically pulling up all the dead spirits, all the violently killed spirits, and recruiting them to his ranks. So that's what I'm working on now. And then these are audiobooks here for you guys to listen to. So I've kind of said enough. That's good. Talk to you guys tomorrow.